Memoirs of an Infantry Officer is Siegfried Sassoon's autobiography recounting his experiences as an officer on the Western Front during the First World War. Here I'll be taking a look at the limited editions club offering, which was issued in an edition of 2,000 copies. This is the second part of a trilogy. The limited editions club also published the first part of the trilogy, Memoirs of a Fox Hunting Man, which I've reviewed previously on this channel. We receive a well-made slipcase covered in brown paper with natural linen top and bottom ends, and the title blocked in gold on the spine. The book too is bound in that same linen and has a black bugle design by Deborah Everett stamped on the front and back boards. The title and author's name are blocked again on the spine, this time in black, and the spine is square rather than being rounded. It's tempted to draw a comparison between this book and Memoirs of a Fox Hunting Man, but the two are very different indeed. Fox hunting is bound in this luxurious red leather and would have been quite at home on the stately bookcases of one of Shurston's hunting chums. Infantry Officer is a much more humble affair, befitting its more serious subject matter. Within, after these plain end papers, we encounter a special making of soft white eggshell wove paper. There are 264 pages and they're secured together in a sewn binding with brown and white head and tail bands. This paper has a very pleasing coloration, a good weight and opacity, and it's also quite pleasant to handle. As for the text, it's set in 12-point linotype Baskerville to a design by Dennis J. Grasdorf, which I find quite pleasing. Like Memoirs of a Fox Hunting Man, the book was illustrated by Paul Hogarth, who has supplied 8 full-page watercolour illustrations, as well as more than a dozen smaller vignette drawings. The watercolours have a real spontaneity and could be passed off, I think, as the work of a war artist. They depict a mixture of intense battlefield vistas, as well as some of the quieter or more quirky moments that punctuate life on the front. The vignettes also punctuate the text and help to make the whole presentation a bit more lively. As usual, Hogarth has signed the book on its colophon page. The book opens with an introduction penned by David Dakis. Dakis shows his pedigree as a leading historian of literature with a biographical sketch of Sassoon, while also proving adept at literary criticism and incredibly perceptive when it comes to illuminating the humanity of Sassoon's writing. In my review of Memoirs of a Fox Hunting Man, I remarked that there seemed to be something a little immature about the poet's first attempt at a novel, but no such claim could be excused here. Memoirs of an Infantry Officer is an incredibly subtle and powerful book. Sassoon cleverly emphasises the misery of the trenches by contrasting it with the bucolic charms of life on leave in the home counties. On one occasion, for instance, having received a letter from the front bearing news that almost everybody he knew there had been killed in a stupid and wasteful attack, he goes on to recount how I walked about the room whistling and putting pictures straight. Then the gong rang for luncheon. Aunt Evelyn drew my attention to the figs, which were the best we'd had off the old tree this autumn. That seems a little bit perverse, and I think that was Sassoon's intention. Elsewhere, human tragedies are recounted as afterthoughts with a nonchalance that cannot fail to underline the insanity of the conflict, such as when Sassoon, giving an account of his thoughts while moving ammunition boxes between trenches, dryly adds that floating on the surface of the flooded trench was the mask of a human face which had detached itself from the skull. And then, in the sheer relentlessness of being expected to return to the mud and shells of the futile attacks at the front for a third time, having already been invalided out twice, it's easy to understand why Sassoon might have snapped. But snapped here gives the wrong impression of a sudden and drastic attitude change. Instead, we get the sense of a rising tide of exasperation and indignation, sentiments that it's hard not to share. This is the subtlety that marks Memoirs of an Infantry Officer as the thinking man's Great War memoir, and a first-rate one at that.